Our fund recipient today, but certainly not least, is Karl Harter from Movin Shoes, Wisconsin. And to introduce him is John Long from Marathon Sports.
Well, I've been given the green light to talk longer by Parker and Mark Oakley. This is really an honor, and I've thought long and hard about this. I actually laid awake thinking about what can I say about Karl. It's okay to say in front of this big of a group, not scare everyone who's new, but Karl really is a pioneer, one of the true pioneers in our category. When you think about Karl started, Movin Shoes in Madison started in 1973. That's incredible. You know, there was no roadmap. There were no special terms to run specially. They were just guys that really liked running. The store was consistently starting to be open in 1976. And I asked Karl, how'd you get in? Especially with all the what's going on in our industry with acquisitions and stock. And to quote Karl, he said, John, I showed up and worked every day for a damn year and didn't get paid. That's how I became an owner. You know, it was really that passion and commitment. And I thought about what Karl, how we got into it. And I think Karl has had a love affair since 1974, I believe, when he moved to Madison, Wisconsin. He really embodies our community. Yesterday we had a speaker, a couple of the speakers, they highlighted two words that really brought to mind what I see in Karl as organic and community. I think Karl is one in that with his community. I mean, there's not a separation of Movin Shoes in Madison. My first experience at Run Specialty where it made a difference to me, and speaking from a customer's perspective, happened in the walls at one of the sites of Movin Shoes, which was a little bit of a rough store. It was early. I was a student athlete at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I was injured. You know, so I was that customer we talked about in our sessions today. I was having problems with my feet. I was given a shoe from Nike, which I won't name, and it was not working for me. And I talked to my coach, and he said, "Okay, this is what you have to do. You got to go to Movin Shoes, and you got to get shoes." Gave me a pair of shoes to exchange. Karl has been a fantastic supporter of the University of Wisconsin, and I think a big reason why our program has been so successful. But his last comment was, John, be sure to call. The place has got quirky hours. He wasn't kidding. Karl, his store didn't, or his business didn't run Karl. He lived his life through his store. So he really took it. It fit the fabric of Madison. Any way I call, I get Karl on the phone. He says, "Hey, John, come on down. We're doing work. I'm here today." It was Monday. They weren't open. I ended up riding my bike over there, and I'm greeted by a wave to come in the door by a gentleman, Roger, one of his previous partners who is since deceased, literally hanging in a very small pair of shorts with virtually no shirt on, kind of a hairy guy, very large, doing yoga. So I walk in, you know, I'm a 17-year-old kid from St. Paul, Minnesota, fairly conservative, and I'm just chalking up being in Madison, and here's a large gentleman hanging there, basically naked, and he does the fitting, literally hanging upside down. I got my own shoes that day. He sent me downstairs. It did have dirt in the basement at that time. It was really a unique experience. I fell in love with what was happening in that store. And I can honestly say, when I got there and I was looking in the window, I thought, how in God's name does a place like this stay in business? You know, and while I was there, so I get a great fitting, and it actually really worked well. While we're talking, Karl said, don't eat that crap they serve at the dorms. Told me a co-op to go to. Again, he was leading me into the community, giving me some information that was going to help me in my career, as I progressed. He also suggested a couple other things, which, focus on school. Karl has a love of academics. Probably, I don't know, some people in this room may know Karl has written 2 novels that have both been published, one of which was put into a movie with Lifetime Network, Winter of Frozen Dreams. And again, when I think about it, it was written about a murder in Madison, or a couple murders in Madison. So it really involved Madison. It was kind of the seedier side, and Karl really dove into that. He had exemplified what the city was all about. And I look at all the people that Karl has helped over time. We hear stories that, respond. This is the Movin Shoes Day, which is great. With both Karls, that he really helped a lot of us. And, when I think of a mentor or somebody I emulate in this business, Karl just comes to mind all the time. Karl probably doesn't know the latest times, and I'll jump here a little bit. He may not know who has the fastest PR in this room, but he has had multiple Olympians work in his store. One Olympian actually offered to work there basically for free, just to be a part of that community. He's created such a fantastic community. I think when I think about what all our stores want to be your own personality. Madison is a different personality than Minneapolis or New York or Chicago, but really embody, look at what's important to your community. And I can't thank Karl enough for what he's done for Madison. He created a running community when there wasn't a running community, and it really has helped our university for one, and I think just the community of Madison in general. And I always look forward to that magic that I had when I left that first day out of that store. I would try to get one of my children to go to Madison so I can go visit Karl and have breakfast, but I'm not having good luck with that. They're all choosing schools where Dad didn't go. I really appreciate this. I'm so excited to see Karl get this award, and if everybody could put your hands together. Oh, he's with his wife, Christina, here today as well. Let's welcome Karl Harter.
Thank you. This is really cool. If I can read my notes. In 1973, Richard Nixon was President of the United States. The Godfather had just won the Oscar for Best Picture, and because much of my life is measured by rock and roll, I know that in 1973 it was the year that Pink Floyd released their transcendent album Dark Side of the Moon, and Led Zeppelin released Houses of the Holy. And 1973 was also the year that two guys in Madison, Wisconsin opened a running shoe store that they called Movin Shoes. In 1973, Nike was Blue Ribbon Sports, Asics was Onitsuka Tiger, and it would be another 9 years before my store manager, Shalon Holbeck, was conceived. In 1974, I moved from New Jersey, rather I fled New Jersey, to Madison, and I bought my first official pair of running shoes at Movin Shoes. They were Nike Nylon Cortez, blue with a white swoosh, and the first thing I did was get some duct tape to put on the outside of the heel so they wouldn't wear out so fast. I became a co-owner in 1976. My qualifications were very simple. I ran. I was mostly friendly, and I had enough money saved up from teaching high school in Philadelphia and Flemington, New Jersey, so I didn't have to draw a paycheck for a couple of years. In 1977, we did $29,000 worth of business for the entire year. Like most of you probably out there, we do that on a Good Friday and Saturday in March. But that's what we did. There was no money. We took no money. Everything we made went back into building the store because nobody knew what a running shoe store was, and no bank was sure as hell going to lend us any money. Back then, shoes cost $18.95 retail. Our first store was located in the basement of a shabby apartment building, and people would waddle down the stairs. They were rickety. And they'd come in and they'd say, I need shoes. And I'd look at them and go, yeah. They say, I think I'm a size 10. I'd say, it's your lucky day. I got a size 10. Bang. That was a sale. It was a done deal. One thing I do want to mention is that back in those days, prices did fluctuate. If you pedaled up to the store with a bicycle, you paid $18.95. If you got out of some fancy European sedan, we charged you $22.95. And if you had the big bucks, and this is true, we're willing to spend $24.95. We took an outline of your foot, and we sent it to New Balance. And they sent 2 weeks later, they sent you back a pair of Traxxer 3 running shoes. They were actually literally custom made. I don't want to get all nostalgic about the good old days because some of those days weren't all that good, to be honest with you, but things were way different back then. Running nutrition was a handful of Jolly Ranchers that you took with you on a long run. And the big technological breakthrough back then was Shuku. Oh man, we were so excited about that. And the sales reps, people don't understand today. Back then, the sales reps, they were all guys out of the sporting goods industry. And so they were used to selling baseball gloves and basketballs and hockey stuff. And so they were all pudgy white guys with really bad skin. And they had no idea what a running shoe was, or why the heck would a person voluntarily and unprovoked go for a 6-mile run. This made no sense to these guys, okay? So they'd come in with their satchel, and they'd have a sport jacket on, and they'd be smoking a cigarette. Well, hey, I'm here to sell your running shoes. And I'd be like, there's no smoking in here. He says, well, damn, can we go on the sidewalk and do it? And they had to have their cigarette. And then when they were done, they'd say, oh, how about I take you down to the steakhouse around the corner for lunch? I was a vegetarian back then. I'm going, yeah, that's just what I want to do. I want to go eat a dead cow and inhale secondhand smoke for another hour. No way. But all that's changed. Now the sales reps are all skinny and malnourished, and they look like they could run forever on 2 Cliff Bars and a pocket of goo. All of them except my Saucony rep, Paul Peters. Paul is one Dharma bum buddy, and he comes in, and the first thing we do, we go down to the local donut shop. We get ourselves some donuts, we have a good time. And it's terrific. We're far below me and Paul. I was never a running guy. I mean, I started running in high school, not for track, but because I was a baseball player. And my high school baseball coach had all the pitchers run 5 miles 4 days a week. Because back then they thought it would help your arm strength and keep you in good shape. So I ran in Chuck Taylor high top flats because, of course, I was very cool. And I played baseball in college until I got dismissed from the baseball team because I spent more time protesting the war in Vietnam and chasing hippie girls than I did going to baseball practice. So I know tons about baseball. Well, baseball, I can tell you one, Ted Williams hit 406, the last guy hit over 400, and Triple Crown winners and all that kind of stuff. I don't know anything about running as an athletic event and running as a sport. So a couple of years back, my wife Christina and I were at the ASICS Gold Conference. And they introduced Ryan Hall as the guest speaker at the opening ceremony. And I lean over to Christina and I say, what is my Adidas rep doing speaking at the ASICS Gold Conference? And so then this guy gets up who is not the Ryan Hall I know. And I feel embarrassed like I'm a complete idiot. And my wife leans over to me and says, oh, don't worry, honey, he probably doesn't know you either. Well, Ryan Hall, wherever you are, Ryan Hall, the runner, you're taller and faster. But I'm not sure you're as cute as Ryan Hall, my ex-Adidas rep. Speaking of Olympians, I've been very lucky. Gabe Jennings was the first high school kid that I hired. Gabe Jennings back in the day it was like watching him run was like watching poetry. It was terrific. He was a stoner like me, so we got along really, really well. And all the high school girls would come in and they'd buy shoes and they'd swoon over Gabe Jennings. And so when they were talking, Wisconsin was recruiting really hard, and they wanted me to try to intervene to help influence him. Well, I'm not going to influence him. He wants to do what he wants. So I said to him one day, hey, what is it you want to go to Stanford for? And he says, I want to go to Stanford because I want to get a date with Chelsea Clinton. That was how Gabe Jennings was. Susie Faber worked at Movin Shoes. Before and after, she was Susie Faber and Susie Faber Hamilton. She was delightful woman to have around the place. She was a little bit of a space queen, but she was terrific. Chris Zielinski worked at Movin Shoes. He was, I think at that time, finished with his college career, just finishing up. He volunteered to work for free. He said, Carl, I can't train 20 hours a day. So let me come into the store. I'll just sell shoes, hang out. I like runners. He was a terrific guy. Matt Takenkamp worked at the store. Pascal Delbert worked at the store. They were all Movin Shoes alumni. And it was terrific. I won't tell my Tim Irvine dumpster diving story. If those of you who don't know, Tim Irvine was the Mizuno rep. Tim took to put it in his dorm room or throw it in the dumpster out back. So one day I got an appointment with Irvine, who's Mizuno rep. And Tim says, and my buddy at the store, Tim Gold says, oh, he calls me up the night before, he says, you're in big trouble. Irvine saw what you do with all the POP stuff. You throw it in the dumpster out back. So the next day I come into work to meet with Tim at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and there I go park in the back, and there in the dumpster I see his head pop out. Irvine ain't that tall, you know, he's not that much larger. And his head pops up from the dumpster going, what are you doing throwing our stuff away? This is expensive. And he's taking pictures with his camera. I said, get the hell out of there. Oh, God, it was terrific. Karl Harter, for those of you who believe it or not, used to be my Adidas rep. And he was just back then exactly like he is now. He was very dedicated and very intense and very thorough. And if you ask me, a little too pretty. But I'm just going to let that slide. I got to tell one story about my wife. I moved out from New Jersey to Wisconsin. And you know, back in New Jersey, you grew up in New Jersey, everybody got, you know, you got your family doctor, and you got your family dentist, and the mechanic who fixes the car, and you got a bookie. Everybody had a bookie. I thought everybody everywhere had bookies. I moved out here, I didn't know that. So I'm dating my wife. We've been married for 22 years, about 24 years ago. And she comes over on a Saturday afternoon, it's in the fall, and she stops by, we're going to go out for dinner that night. And she comes upstairs, and I got the football game on at Illinois and Michigan State. And she looks at me and she says, what are you watching? I'm like, oh, I'm not really watching, I just wanted to see what the score was. And she said, Illinois, Michigan State, who cares about that? I said, well, I do, I got $200 on Illinois. And my wife says, oh, well. I said, well, I'm going to go for a run, I'll be back, we'll go out to dinner. Okay, she turns off the TV, she gets a book, she sits down on the couch, starts to read. I go for like a 10-mile run, I come back an hour and a half later, and I hear this screaming inside the house. Go, 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 go! And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on with my wife? I'm gonna run upstairs and make sure she's all right. The TV's on, and she says, there's a minute left, Illinois just scored, you're gonna cover. And then I'm like, so that's terrific, and she says, now we can afford a really good bottle of wine at dinner tonight. You know, that's going to make me a keeper. I'd be lucky if she stays with me. But anyway, I think that part of what's made Movin shoes so. You saying that's it? No, time is up, he says. I can't tell any more stories. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you especially to 3 people in particular in the industry. And I make fun of Chris, but I kind of think of him as, it sounds dumb, but it is dumb. My 3 magi, Karl Harter, and John Long, and Mitch Hobbs. Whenever I got questions or some quandary about something that has to do with the business, you know, I call him up and talk to him, to any one of them, or all of them, and they're always there with terrific advice. And so I want to say a special thank you to those 3 fellas. I think what's made Movin Shoes so successful is that we've treated every customer as a friend. Back in the late 70s, you line up for a race, there'd be 20 people. You know every damn one of them. You might not know their name, but you know that's a size 11. I know what he runs in the waffle trainers. From the beginning, they were all friends. And my emphasis has always been showing respect and for the regular, ordinary guy and gal who goes out there and slugs through a run. Whether you're an elite marathoner or a fat guy trying to lose 10 pounds or a woman who wants to start an exercise program, if running is important to you, then you are important to us. It's not your time, it's not your speed, it's not the accomplishments that matter. All that matters is that you're trying to move, and that's what makes you a winner. My last bit is because I'm a rock and roll stoner kid is from Bob Dylan, from Maggie's Farm. Bob Dylan says, I try my best to be just like I am, but everybody wants me to be just like them.